They left this morning.
Your dad's the nicest because he comments on everything on Instagram
My dad comments
with
on
the clapping
everything.
emoji. Love it.
He's like, good job.
Yeah, it'll be a good job.
Yeah,
Love
bro.
it. Yeah. He'll comment on everything
Nice.
too. Like it'll be videos that I make of just like me for Break Connect, and he'll put some shout
And
out to
then
your
he'll
dad.
message me that video or that clip or that post on Instagram.
Damn. Shout out to your dad. Shout out to Felix's dad. This is gonna be a banger episode today because this is for Felix's dad.
What's up, everyone? My name is Felix, founder and CEO of Break Connect. I'm here with my partner, Luis, aka El Prod. And welcome to The Switch. The Switch is a podcast about people that find their passion, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in breaking. The most important thing is that it's something that they truly love and they turn it into a career. They turn it into something that they can pursue. And I really feel like, again, like I say this every time, but every time I say it, it doesn't make it any less true that our next guest or our current guest, Whacko, is someone that embodies that essence of what this podcast is about. You know, you might know him for being a dancer, you might know that he does some Muay Thai, but the thing that surprised everyone is that he's like, oh, by the way, he bakes donuts and they're bomb. And yeah, like I had the pleasure of being in San Diego and getting to know you and then getting to know your journey from like starting this career to seeing where it's blossoming right now, dealing with a lot of adversity, but still making it like what it is. Like I love the marketing behind it. I love the humor behind it. Everyone, welcome to the show, Vander Wacko Hill, the founder of Whack Donuts.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yo, you mentioned that you said you might know him for being a dancer. You might know him from Muay Thai. I didn't know him from Muay Thai. I strictly knew him for donuts. No, I'm just kidding. Whoa, you dance, dude? What the hell? Oh, dude. We got the triple threat today. It's not often that we have a triple threat. Almost every episode is a dual threat, but a triple threat, that's rare.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Wacko has been a staple in the dance community, but one of the things I appreciate about you and your journey is just kind of how you're able to utilize the dance community and still make an impact, not directly by being a dancer. I think just like being a dancer brings you into the dance community, but like using that community and that platform to uplift Whack Donuts and kind of like make it grow, which is kind of a beautiful thing.
Thanks.
So, for those of you that might not know, because right now this is just a pure introduction portion of this podcast, so I'm not expecting you to know. But we have a previous connection here. I've met Wacko in the past through dance, as we mentioned before. Same with Felix. But through that connection, I got to know his business owner side of things, and it's not just any business. These are vegan donuts that are delicious. Felix, would you agree with me?
Oh, hell yeah.
And we're
Yeah, that's
unbiased. We don't bring on people and just tell them what they want to hear. If they were like bad donuts, I'd be like, dude, they suck, they're whack. But
if they were
in
bad
this
donuts,
case,
we wouldn't have him on the show.
yeah, we wouldn't invite you if you had bad donuts, Wacko. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't
But
want to lie
Yeah.
to people.
yeah, exactly. We don't want to lie to people. They're great. He has really interesting flavors too. I've had the matcha one. I've had the horchata, Thai tea.
That's actually say
Yeah, dude. No, that and to me, like it means a lot more when it's someone that clearly is passionate about what they're doing and wants to pursue the craft in dance, and I guess also now in donuts. And I've always wondered this one question. So now that I have you right in front of me, you're forced to answer. What got you started with donuts in particular? What about donuts made you think like this is what I want to pursue?
Um, well, another not known fact about me is in high school I actually worked at a donut shop. Because by my senior year we had to do all these like mentorship hours, and I know everything about donuts because of a Cambodian family that my family grew up with and schooled me on just everything donuts. So a lot of Cambodian immigrants, most people don't know, are the main reason why like America like has the pink box and donuts. So you ever watched Donut King? Good documentary. But fast forward to the pandemic, right before that, actually, grief is how Rack Donuts was born. Unfortunately, from 2017 to 2020, I had significant like family loss and friends. My grandma got lung cancer in 2017. I literally found out the last day I saw her, that she was terminally ill. Year after that, my mom, her cancer metastasized in her bones, and she passed away a month after that. And then 2019 was a double whammy where it was my aunt and my old bowling coach. I was shout out again to Felix because he put my name in the cap. I was getting flown out for a hip hop session, and it was me and Eddie, and my mentor had passed the previous weekend, and as I was flying out, my aunt was on life support, and my phone was blowing up. And it was as I was heading out to the airport. I made a beeline to the hospital, but they took her off life support. The year after that, right before the world fell apart, my best friend's dad, who's like my dad, succumbed to Alzheimer's. So I wasn't dancing at this point. The lockdowns were happening. The only thing I was doing was training Muay Thai, and even then, it was like the whole 6 feet thing. So I was literally losing my mind. I had like left my job just because it was like too much, and I just started baking. So most people that met me early on, that was my other hidden talent. It was like I'd be at the Rock So Fresh house, and if it was a barbecue or whatever,
Oh, I
I would make
remember
a beef Calvert.
this.
And so it was dubbed the truth by the community because they're like,
Rude.
yo, dude, this you man's could throw it down. And like, it was one of the first things I learned how to make. And it was one of the first desserts that my aunt and my grandma had that they didn't know I could like get down like that because growing up in the house, dominated by women, I was spoiled in my aunt's eye. Even when I was living with her, she didn't think I could cook. So as I got older and I was living on my own, that was my thing, was baking. But yeah, one of my teammates at my gym gave me a recipe. She was like, "Hey, have you ever baked donuts?" And I was like, yeah, a long time ago." And so it just turned into this thing where I was making them and giving them out to homies. And my boy Fernando was like, "Yo, this is the best fucking donut I've had in a long time. I think you should sell these." And so uh, I didn't really think much of it, and everything was closed out here, back in the day. And so I made an Instagram page, and then a whole high school homegirl saw that. She was like, "Yo, you want to ever do a pop up in my family's cafe? It's just four of us. It's you could do your thing." And so I started off that. And then one of the breweries out here had a weekend market, and that was one of the few things that was open. And it just snowballed from there. I got into Rainbow Grocery through the owner uh, girlfriend. Went to one of my pop ups, had my donuts, introduced me. I was there for a year. I did stuff with Verizon, Google, Sephora, and it was just kind of more word of mouth. So at then some point, 2023, I applied for what was happening out here. The Vacant to Vibrant was a program from the city that was trying to fill in all the vacant storefronts that unfortunately shuttered during the pandemic. And it was mostly geared towards, up and coming small businesses. So I applied for that. At the same time, I applied for a grant program called the Ujama Kitchen that was helping Black and Brown businesses. And I didn't know it was going to be like going back to school. So it was like a 6 month program. I got 18K at the end, and basically connections to a lot of stuff here in the city. Now I'm a city supplier, what's called a city supplier. So if someone from City Hall or whatever has like a special like request for like a certain niche, like kind of dessert, I can apply and then like those events. And it was the Vacant to Vibrant was 3 months free rent, utilities, which wasn't really a lot of time. Um, that came and went, and then I negotiated a 2-year extension for a lease, and then early this year I extended for another year or so, shooting for 3 years in total downtown here in San Francisco, and yeah, I've just been grinding ever since. So
Wow. I love that. So I just want to say one thing real quick. There's a picture of me on the internet eating that peach cobbler with like ice cream on top. And I'm just like so zoned in. This is when I first moved to San Diego. We were hanging out at the Rock So Fresh house and you came down and you're like, "Are you guys ready for the truth?" And I'm like, "What the hell's he talking about?" And then you just start like handing everyone like a plate of peach cobbler, and I'm like, "Oh, this looks good." And then I just started eating it, and then everything else disappeared. It was just me and this plate, little vanilla ice cream on top, and it's just like I'm just you see it in my eyes. I'm like zoned in. Nothing exists except me and the peach cobbler. So just want to say that.
It sounds cinematic.
It,
Like everything zoomed out and everything got blurry and it was just you and the peach cobbler. I want to say it's probably not easy to make it as a small business in downtown San Francisco. I don't know the logistics of it, but I imagine that it is a challenge in itself just to stay alive down there. So my hat's off to you, man. Like I can already tell, like it's probably been a process just to be able to do what you love to do where you're at. Maybe if you were in like Omaha, Nebraska, you'd be living living a different situation, but I mean, it's cutthroat down there in downtown San Francisco. I mean, prices going up everywhere, right? But still, like, man, hats off to you. Absolutely.
yeah, the realities of just it's easy to start a business here. It's just the maintenance and the help. Like, someone broke into the shop last year. As soon as I got out of that program and I became like an actual tenant, bro, like HVAC, pest control, all these like new zonings and permitting. Like, I mean, I know it all now just because of what I've gone through, but unfortunately, the program really didn't like help us in that regard. And I had like friends that had experience helping me, but yeah, I'm still standing.
that's what's up.
Standing
Yeah.
tall. One thing that I think you didn't mention, and maybe that was because you're leaving this opportunity for the grand reveal. Your donuts are very inclusive. They're not just donuts, but they're vegan, correct? So like anybody can consume this wonderful, delicious dessert. Um, how did you decide to go that route? Because vegan donuts are not really common, you know what I mean? So for you to have that as an opportunity for anybody to have them, first of all, it's really inclusive. But second of all, that's not where my head would have gone if I started doing donuts. So what was the inspiration behind going that route? And how has it resulted for you as a business?
So I initially wasn't using a lot of dairy, or like real eggs. So the push to go full vegan came when I made the Instagram and I was putting pictures up, and it turns out a lot of my friends and extended family were like, "Oh man, I want to try it, but I'm vegan," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I just spent about just 3.5 months back in the lab, just relearning. Okay, can I make this vegan? And how hard was it? How easy is it? I mean, it was a nice like middle ground. Even like once I got into doing gluten-free shit, like okay, or actually I don't want cane sugar, can you use liquid? So that I also saw that since it's such a niche market, vegan desserts don't get a lot of love. So I kind of was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make the ultimate donut that anyone can eat, regardless if you're vegan or not. And the
Mm,
deeper I went down that rabbit hole, I was like, oh, okay. So I learned everything. I know how to make stuff from scratch instead of using, they're like, what can you use instead of an egg binder? I'm like, oh, well, I can make a chia seed, or I can make a flaxseed egg, or I can use maple syrup instead of like, honey. And, the rest is history. But yeah. And then flash forward to like when we had the weird egg like crisis thing, and like eggs were
Yeah.
like $50 a dozen. I had a lot of my friends like, oh, are you good, bro? And I'm like, well, I don't use eggs in my donuts, so I'm good. So learning how to make stuff just on the vegan tip, definitely. I mean, I do have to use kind of like more pricier things, but then once I learned how to make stuff from scratch, it's kind of like the nice healthy balance of like, well, I can't use this egg replacer, but I have something on my shelf where I could like fill that void. And I had the homie Noy come over when I was still doing this out of my apartment in the early stages. And I was like, here, try this donut. And he was like, oh, this is dope. And I was like, here, try this one over here. And he was like, oh, even better. And I was like, that one's gluten free. And so it's the after effect of like when people realize it's vegan and they are like, dude, I can't even tell. That's when I knew my recipes were getting there. So that's still the goal. It's like, because I'm never satisfied. So I'm always tweaking things here and there. So now I used to, something my homegirl had me like really say is like, I make donuts that just happen to be vegan. Because when I first was like, I make vegan donuts, people were like, ill. And, and I used to be a school teacher for a hot second. So it's like getting, your kids to eat something healthy was a challenge. So I just did like my grandma. I wouldn't say shit. And I would just sneak it in or be like, yo, you think you're drinking like juice? No, you just been drinking fruity water for a whole school semester. And they're like, what? So same thing. But I just was like, you know what? I got a handle on this. I think this is the route that I'm going to go. So, and I want to, stand out too. So,
Facts.
No, that's
Do
what's up.
you personally have a favorite flavor that you've made? Because I know that like it's really not super common to see some of the flavors that you've made out in the market. Everybody makes a chocolate donut. Like that's entry level shit to get into the donut business. You got to make a chocolate donut. Everybody got to know how to make a glazed donut. But once you start getting into like cultural cultural sub flavors, like not everybody can do it right, or at the very least, like do it correctly from a taste perspective. So you've done plenty of those. Correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't you had an ube donut?
yep.
Not everybody can do that. So, which of the flavors that you've put out has been your favorite and why?
Um, I mean, obviously, it's most likely the peach cobbler donut because once people got wind that I was doing this, because it was funny because a lot of times when I was hitting up the homies, I was trying to at them, and they're like, "Yo, bro, some whack donuts." Like trying to at, is that you? I'm like, "How many wackos do you know, bro?" Like, um, but no, yeah. What I also tell people with my flavors is my flavors are reflective of my upbringing here in the Bay and when I started traveling for dance. So I went to school in the Mission out here. So like I was one of the few black dudes like hanging around with like my Salvadorian, Mexican, Nicaraguan, Panamanian homies. And so I when I got introduced to like, Selena, flan, tres leches, like all the quinceañeras I went to as a kid, like I remembered that when I first met my first Filipino homies and I had ube for the first time. I went to Jollibee and I'm like, yo, what's this? I finally made my like, dream trip to Japan in 2015 and taught out there and had real matcha and like real sushi. So making it out to Korea, making it out to Taiwan,
Sushi donuts.
like bro, I said, okay, well, I want to infuse that, those flavors into what I do. So, like you said earlier, like, yeah, I could do like a chocolate, I could do a regular glaze, but my chocolate donut that I do is an homage to a spot that me and my friends used to hang out before we would watch movies at the 1000 Van Ness. It was this one Chinese, like dessert slash American food spot slash Chinese spot, and they had this chocolate crumb cake donut, and you couldn't get it anywhere else in the Bay. And so that's how I do my chocolate donut. So that's something pulling from like again like my memories of just growing up out here. So I do the flavors that other people won't do. I've done a mango chutney. I think the best donut I ever made, and I still kick myself for not writing down the recipe, but I did an eggnog donut one year when I was still in my apartment, and my neighbors were like, "Dude, I think this is the best one you've ever made." And I'm on version 2, like 4.0. I think it's pretty close to what I did, but sometimes I just get inspiration at 2, 3 in the morning, or the homie Serge was like, "You ever do an Oreo cookie donut?" And I was like, "No." And I went to grocery outlet an hour later and I made an Oreo cookie donut. So it's like I get inspiration in the weirdest places. So, I'm not Bob's, I'm not Dynamo, I'm definitely not Dunkin'. I'm like I'm trying to do what everyone else is not doing. So
Real.
I love the authenticity be like that you have. for each of the flavors, like what you said, it's like it's a chocolate donut, but it's not like a regular chocolate donut. There's like a reason that it tastes the way it tastes. And I've had your chocolate donut, by the way, delicious. Um, so honestly, like when you talk about your donuts, I remember having them. Like, and I remember where I was, you know, specifically when we were at that record store in San Diego on Adams, you had a bunch of them, and I tried a lot of those donuts like that day. So just kind of give like letting you know what I'm talking about. Like, so like that taste, when you talk about them, that memory triggers automatically.
And you know
Yep.
what else is like, it's hard to envision the same moments that you've been in, right? To have these moments, it's hard to envision being with you in these moments where, for example, right before you hit the theaters, you're hanging out with your friends, you're having this very one of a kind chocolate donut. We can't envision that because we weren't there, but you're bringing us as close as we possibly can by creating these flavors strictly from these inspirations. And I think that's what makes businesses stand out, right? Like people always talk about doing things for the love of it, putting your heart into things, putting yourself into your craft. Like this is the perfect example of that. Like, how am I supposed to know what you've lived? I wasn't with you all of those years of your life, but I can come close, as close as possible, I suppose, through these different flavors that you're putting into literally like an art form in the form of cuisine, I suppose. So that's tight. That's tight to know. I didn't know that. I didn't know that all your flavors had like such a distinct story. So that makes me actually want to go buy more donuts. Hopefully that works the same for everybody else. But at least for me, like that makes me want to purchase more of your donuts.
It's so I don't want to like sidetrack, but it reminds me of like there's this ice cream spot in like where I used to live, Stella Jeans. Um,
Oh
you
yeah.
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
And it like each of their flavors kind of has a little background to it.
Mm.
And I'm drawn to specific like the mango rice. What the fuck is that? Mango sticky rice.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Like
That's fire.
it's one of my favorite flavors that they have. And there's a little story behind it, but the point is like, yeah, to like the fact that Luis wants to try these other flavors is because there is background, because there is culture behind it. And that's fucking dope, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I was like literally doing this out of my apartment, the also driving force too was like, I was fighting eviction. I was caught in like a 3 year eviction like thing while I started this business. So that's the other thing of about Whack Donuts is like I was like just fighting everything. I was fighting depression. I was fighting grief, and then I was literally fighting, to not be homeless. And so that gave me the push because I was waking up, crazy hours, cleaning my kitchen a certain way. I couldn't eat like, meat or anything because I had to prep and make what I was making for that day. Then I would eat later in the day. But yeah, like every morning I wake up, even if I didn't sell out in the beginning, I just kept at it. So I still have those days where it's like, man, it's like rough, but I love what I do, and I'm like, what's a flavor I could do this time? Or am I stressing that someone gave me 2 stars last week, which actually happened because they were like, you only got 4 flavors, and I was like, back to your point, people don't really like listen to when I'm breaking down why I have 4 flavors or why I'm just showcasing like these sellers. These are the ones that sell. So it's just been interesting, man.
Yeah.
One of the staples, I think, of your brand identity is the cool name that you've got for it, right? Which is Whack Donuts. For a lot of people, if you throw this name to someone in, I don't know, Idaho, say, hey man, like you got to try these whack donuts. They're like, what makes them whack? Like, what do you, are they that bad? But to everybody that knows you, they know like these are Whacko's donuts, whack donuts. But I've always been curious, and I think it's a perfect segue here to know where you got the name Whacko from. I've never knew, and then you're like one of the illest out to do like any sort of dancing. So to me, it was like, how do we get here? How did it become Whacko when this guy's like one of the illest out? So explain your origin story and how you decided to land on Whack Donuts.
So when I finally got allowed to get deeper into hip hop stuff growing up because it was like if it wasn't on the radio, I couldn't, really fuck with it, And this is even like the local guys like so Sally Cell, Rapping Forte, E40, you know, Mac Dre. Um, when I finally got into like breaking, the first ever competition I entered, they were like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I was like, I'm not gonna give them my government name. And so I told them Wacko, and they were like, all right, cool. But how I got that name was, like I said, I grew up and went to school mostly in the Mission. One of the few black guys hanging out with my homies, and they used to always call me payaso. And at the time I was self-conscious. I'm like, hey man, you making fun of my mama? It's like, no, no, dude, you're a clown. That's why we call you that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went to middle school in the 90s when like Serenios and Norteños were still, in the Mission. And though we went to a private school where we wore school uniform, a lot of them would try to fuck with us and you get jumped and you couldn't wear like Niners colors over on 16th. Because I was red territory, or that was blue territory, and then 24th was red. And we used to go to taquerias all the time, and it was like before Taco Tuesday was a thing. We used to go to Pancho Villa Taqueria, pull our money together, and just eat. And I remember, some Serenios were trying to jump my boy Ricardo. And the thing about me, though I was the goofy one in the group, I had a temper. And the thing was, it was like you pushed me, and then I blew up. So I remember three guys tried to get my boy Ricardo, and I said nope, and I took him out. I saw a garbage can, I threw it at one guy. There was a car parked. My cousin taught me how to wrestle, so I rammed him into a car. I just went ape shit. And from that point on, they were like, dude, you're crazy when you fight. You're like a psycho. No, you're like a wacko. Yeah, we're gonna call you wacko now. And so fast forward to my first competition, I entered as wacko. And then in the beginning, especially at sales-based practices, like everyone was like, dude, you're whack, you're whack, you're whack, you're whack. So I kept that name until I got better. And so transferring that over to when I started Whack Donuts, I was like, okay, I need a name that stands out. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna call it Whack Donuts because I want dancer homies in the beginning were the first people I went at, and I was like, they know me as Wacko, so they're like Whack Donuts. But I instantly had a tagline. I was like, yo, can you say these donuts are whack? And they're like, why? They're delicious. I'm like, I know, but it's the flip, I was like, oh yeah, these donuts are whack. So that's how I got the name Wacko, and that's how I developed the name Whack Donuts. Like just to kind of flip the script.
Well, the
That's
script
awesome. I honestly
definitely
thought it
flipped.
was Animaniacs.
No, I actually got Wacko a year before Animaniacs came out. So,
Damn, that's uncanny valley. That's crazy.
but yeah.
What? So we're not we up until this point we haven't really covered probably the biggest aspect of your life up until the donuts journey, which was dance, right?
Yep.
Like I mentioned before, when I met you, I knew you for dancing. Like through Eddie, obviously we got to know each other. But I've seen your footage, man, and like when people talk about like top rock inspiration, you're one of those guys for me because you really bring a sense of like fresh air to something that I think can grow so stale if you just don't dedicate enough of your identity to it. Um, and that really brought me to think like, wow, like I don't think that we have that same level of authenticity in a lot of the style today, right? Like breaking as a whole. Um, but for you, like when did you start dancing? And then how did you start developing this identity that would eventually lead you on to being known as one of the best top rockers on the West Coast?
Wow. So interesting story is like I grew up not liking dance at all.
Really? Okay.
So, 80s baby, 90s kid. Anytime my classmates, my girl classmates had a birthday party, you automatically knew that there was going to be some type of dancing because the girls in my class, girls always want to dance. And so I remember the first birthday party I went to, it was the parents rented this like hall And like, whatever the 90s like thing was, like I was like, oh man, I have two left feet. And I didn't like dancing. And so I remember I locked myself in the bathroom for like half an hour and I was just like pretending like I was crying. They're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Do we need to call your mom? I was like, call my mom, call my mom. And my mom picked me up and and I had to kind of like, she was like, she's driving. She's like, boy, what happened? And I was just like, I didn't want to dance. She like stopped the car. She was like, I came back to pick you up because you didn't want to dance. And I was just like, yeah. She was like, boy. And so, flash forward to eighth grade, my best friend Matthew, he signed me up for a talent show. And I didn't know this because he saw me do a moonwalk, and I used to be able to. I used to have flips back in the day, and so he signed me up. And I remember our principal, Miss Whacko, was like going from classroom to classroom, and she was like, "Okay, who's doing the talent show?" And he was like, "Oh, here you go, Miss Whacko." And she's like, Vander's Weird Dances. What's that? And I like looked at him like, bro, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do like, hip hop, some Michael Jackson, Oh, she's okay. And I was like, and I had no idea. And we had to audition and I had nothing planned. And I just remember like I out of nowhere, I just started hitting like, MC Hammer shit. And then I ended it with a moonwalk and I did a James. And they were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so I remember I did it in the talent show. Then everyone was like, oh, I didn't know you could dance. My teacher, Miss
I
Rapp,
didn't know I
music
could
teacher,
dance.
yeah, I was like, she was like, oh my God. And she was terrible because I remember I went to private school, so these teachers were horrible. I only had like three good teachers, but she's like, I didn't know you could do that. And I was like, whatever. Um, so when I got fun fact, there's these two brothers on Soul Train in the 80s. They had Jerry curls, and you
Mhm.
could tell they used to lock and pop back in the day. And I didn't know that Soul Train was like filmed in LA. And these guys would drive up to SF, and my mom knew them. And so they'd be in my room just like locking, popping, and that was like my pseudo intro into those funk styles. And so
Mhm.
I think that was still in there. And then by the time I got to my sophomore, junior year, breaking was like a thing. And that's when I first saw like Hound Dog Truckers. So when Profo, Rob Nasty, Bug Eye Bandit were still like Hound Dog Truckers doing street shows on Fourth and Powell. I saw those guys. I linked up with this dude at the Exploratorium, this guy named Scorpio. He was kind of a toy. Um, and but he was stuck on like breaking one and two boogaloo. That was his shit. And he even made me bring a broom to one of the 5-on-5s. I'm like, what the fuck are we gonna do with the broom, bro? Like, I ain't turbo. But that was my first time seeing Renegades, Rock Force. I saw up and coming Roland battle Profo in a 1v1. So it was a crew battle and 1v1. I believe Profo beat Roland. I could be wrong, but I didn't realize I was in a room with all these like juggernauts, and I'm like, yo, I'm whack because there's like dudes half my size are just killing it. That was my first time, like I said, seeing a lot of the Bay heavy hitters. And yeah, this is at Cell Space. So Cell Space is where everything started for me. And at some point, I injured my wrist because I was also heavy in the bowling. So I was in the bowling squad. I was in the Junior Olympics at one point. And so how I developed my style was actually from an injury. So the time that I wasn't doing full work and power anymore, I just focused on the music. And because D Rock, saw me outside and I was upset. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. I can't even fully break anymore. Like, what's the point? And he was like, well, bro, I didn't come through for my crew tonight, but just because you can't kill it on the floor doesn't mean you can't kill it on top. And I was just like, okay. And then I just got lost in like music. And so I had all the Battle of the Years back at, during the Mr. Rag years at the malls. And I was just watching stuff. And I got cool with Blue Boy, who was teaching at the Embarcadero YMCA. And so, yeah, I just got to a point where I was like, well, I'm still gonna have that energy when like I danced on top. And then when I finally met track two, he kind of turned into a grandpa and he was like, your people are the architects of this shit, so don't if you could smoke someone with just your top rock, I mean, come on, bro. And so that planted a seed in when they started having more like top rock battles, like Mighty Four was one of the first I remember doing that. The first year I entered, I didn't get through. The second year I entered was when me and Why Not battled the first time, and that sucked because I know 300 came out that week, and this is when I was in art school, and my homies were like, "We're gonna go watch you dance," and I got my wisdom teeth pulled out. The thing that sucked is that Monday, some dude pseudo sucker punched me when I was like getting picked up by my boy, and I was just spitting up blood. And he was like, "Dude, what happened?" It was like this dude like fucking like socked me in the face as I got in the car, and so that impacted my teeth somehow, and I had to get surgery like that Wednesday, and day one was that Friday, and so I was like loopy, and so I have a very like bouncy style when I'm on my heels. And bro, I felt everything because I got a weird infection from the insulin. I had dry socket because my mom misunderstood what I was supposed to do after the surgery. And I was like, how did I get here? And I remember I battled Why Not first round, and I was, oh shit. And yeah, just kept going from there. Then I started winning shit around here, and like flash forward to 2011. In between that time, I got into rocking, saw King
Mhm.
of Rock at a Mighty Four, San Jose in 2003, and I was like, oh, this is rocking. No diss to the Beat Street shit, but that was just like one aspect. And then, Bandit and me and Rob formed For Every Rock. And so we were like, all this was happening simultaneously. It was going to B-Boy Hoedown. So I was starting to travel more, just graduated art school. And it wasn't until after I won Dynasty Anniversary in 2010. So from 2007 to 2010 were like the crazy years where I was just I was everywhere. And then 2011 was when I first left the country because Profo had judged Culture Shock Volume 2 in 2010. And then he was like, yo, they're doing a top rock and a rocking. Mind you, at this point, Born is the shit. Why Not's untouchable? I'm like, all right. So I have some motivation, like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go. And I remember I bought my plane ticket first, didn't get my passport. I literally got it like 3 weeks out before flying. Got there day of, dropped my stuff off at the hotel where Miles and the Renegades were staying. They're like, yo, just crash with us. I was like, yo, I took a shower, like, yo, I'm ready, let's go. And I danced the whole day and I made it to the finals in the rocking and the top rock. And I remember I had to battle Born, then Rob Nasty for some reason. And then they're like, okay, Wacko versus Why Not? Let's go. And yeah, so what you don't see in the DVD is like I was done, like because my whole goal was I said, you know what, I'm going to destroy Bourne, make an example out of them, and then with Why Not, it was more like I want to go the distance because when we first battled, I was all messed up, and I
Right.
said, you know what, I want to show that I can hang with this guy because no one, outside of the Bay, no one didn't care about me. But that event was still probably like my favorite event of all time, just because I secured in myself that, wow, I can make it to the finals in two different categories. I won one, and I was like, and he didn't even tell me. He was like, "You're the only guy like that pushed me." Like, so when I said that to me, I was like, "Yeah, it would have been cool to beat him," but I was already happy with the training that I did, and so when people are like, dude, you're just so funky. And I tell people I just pull from like heavily from my culture. It's like I grew up in the house of jazz, blues, funk, watching my grandparents like dance on like, our family like party days when they would get kind of loose. I just pulled from that, and so yeah, can I do all the technical stuff that Why Not does? Sure. But I was like, nah, I'm gonna do me because I felt that's where people were fucking up. They were trying to dance like Why Not? And I'm like, why don't you just dance like yourself? And so Bandit described me best. He's like, you dance from a place of instinct. And I never really thought about it like that, but I just react. So that's how it defined my style. I'm goofy. I definitely pull from that, but like when I'm locked in, I'm locked in. So it's like Felix, you've seen it, and Eddie and Toss be like, "Oh, you can't talk to Wacko right now," and he's locked in because, like, especially at
Yep.
that point, um, I was like, I didn't fly halfway around the world to lose, and I
Real.
knew after that event, then IBE was the next thing. So I said, you know what? I watched that B-Boy Evo documentary, and he won UK champs 3 years in a row, and it still hasn't been repeated. And so that was my goal. So I said, you know what? I'm going to win IBE Top Rock 3 years in a row. I won it twice, and then unfortunately, the third year I was going for it, that's when I broke my foot.
Yeah, dude,
Hell of a run.
indeed. I feel like you could just probably just go to a jam this weekend and probably just win the top right category if you wanted to, if there were to be one. That's like the type of style that you've got that I think it's timeless. You know what I mean? Like you could do it tomorrow, you could do it in a year's time. You've clearly done it up until this point. So I think that's always really what makes a good dancer stand out from like a timeless dancer. Like a good dancer will have the style of today, the meta of today, but someone that just does things for themselves the way that they would just do things naturally, I think they always just stand out a little bit better. And now I have footage to go watch if that exists online because I don't think I've seen those battles that you were just talking about. So if you got them, link me to them. I want to see them.
I'm still very like shy in that regard, where it's like, like I said, I have more fun. People ask me, why are you always in San Diego? Because like I love San Diego. Anytime I went down, Felix was there most of the time. We'd be at the Roxo for a house. We be at a jam. We hang out at like, La Fachada. It's like I fell in
La
love with San Diego,
Fachada.
like,
Love
rest in peace. But I fell in love with San Diego just because also like the cipher vibe. I love I just love hidden ciphers. And I like Bandit got me hooked because he would show me all the main one edits when he was using iFilm back in the day. All the like, all the stuff that Hot Monkey Love, Lovers Rock, Clean Beat, all that. I was like, damn, I wish I went there earlier, but I still think the timing of how I got to San Diego was perfect. And yeah, man, like just San Diego like was my Vegas. It's just like I had so much fun. Everyone was a huge influence on me. Everyone took care of me. I mean, there was a time where I just stayed at the Rockstar Fresh house for like a week, and we were just being
Yeah, you would
dudes.
just kind of be around. I remember being like, wait, doesn't this guy live in San Francisco?
Yeah. And then
It's
there's
a
a
Like,
kid
second
there
home,
who thought I
man.
was like Rockstar Fresh. Is like, aren't you Rockstar Fresh? I'm like, nah, dude, I live in San Francisco. I'm like, oh shit,
Oh shoot.
But
I've heard plenty of
I
stories from the
mean,
Rocks of Fresh House.
too many, too many, too many. But also
Too many indeed.
the Muay Thai though also keeps me grounded because after I broke my foot, I actually did Renegade's anniversary that year with a broken foot because my little sister never seen me dance and I was already like hell bent on doing it.
you beat
Um,
Eddie in the finals that year.
no, no. So you're thinking
Oh,
that was like a few years later. That was the 32nd where I beat Eddie. But
mm.
no, I had a PT homie that taped the hell out of my foot, gave me a shit ton of painkillers. My sister was already there. I made it past prelims, and top eight, I lost to Stuntman, and I was like, oh hell nah, and it just destroyed me. But then my boy Koflo was like, bro, were you dancing on your foot? And I was like, because he saw me take my shoe off and it was a little bloody, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, dude, it was I only my sister, and she kind of got mad at me. She was like, dude, I don't care, I don't want you to get hurt. So I was out for 2 years to get back. So when I won that year against Eddie, that was a big deal because yeah, it took me 2 years to recoup. And that's when, yeah, I even had to stop doing Muay Thai. So that was the other thing that was kind of keeping me balanced. So to your point, like El Prod, like the only reason why I'm still able to do a lot of stuff is, because of, my lifestyle. Muay Thai really like helps. So even when I won the last Seven to Smoke at Renegade's anniversary, I actually like pulled both my Achilles tendons in both my like legs. And so I can do shit. And I literally when I did that, I signed up that day and I was like, that was the first morning I woke up not in pain. So I was just doing crazy physical therapy for like 3.5 months prior. And I was so nervous that like my shoe came off when I was like warming up in a cipher. And it was like, I tell people the only second thing about having a name is like when people see you, they're like, oh, there's Wacko, kill it. And I'm like, I'm still warming up, so there's that weird pressure. But nah, man. Once I won Taiwan, I was like, yo, IBE, and so yeah. Now where I'm at, it's like I don't enter as much, not just because I don't want to. So obviously I got the business, but I'm in a space now, especially after a lot of what I've gone through. It's like with the Time to Rock guys, I'm just trying to like train the next generation. I'll enter every now and then, but if I have the time. But honestly, it's like there's more things in the scene that I want to do and contribute to because I don't need any more titles. I have admiration and respect, which is more than enough for me. It's just like I see a lot of things, unfortunately, that's gone down like, 20 plus years. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do some different things and I don't think another title is going to help. So it's like, if that's me organizing, if that's me mentoring, that's where I've been at for the last, like, I want to say like 5, 6 years. I just want to really coach and mentor in that regard. So
Man, that is the perfect segue for what I was just about to ask because you've been in the dance community long enough, and now from what you just said, it seems like you're in a position where the wins don't mean necessarily as much as they used to. Now it's about propelling the next generation and building, right? Building foundation within these people, but also just building up the community. The Whack Donuts journey has been always, in my eyes at least, parallel to the dance community because that's how I got to know your business. I know a lot of dancers have supported your business. But for you, from your point of view, how has the dance community played a role in where Whack Donuts is today?
I anytime I post something, people will repost like just off rip. And I'm not like, or if I share something, I had to tell this to, an old homie a long time ago. I was like, I just like sharing, you don't have to repost, but it's so mind blowing when I'll post something or you share something with the homies and he just automatically repost. Or like I'll be like, hey man, I want to do this like thing. Can I record you just saying these donuts are whack? And like when I was in Detroit, Box was like, no problem. I was in New York, Nebs, no problem. Like, so yeah, it's like I said, Whack Donuts is a perfect marriage for me of my love for dance and for baking and for like just how you're reacting to like all these things that you're learning about me. Other homies within the scene are like, dude, I had no idea you have a fucking business. This is so dope, or I've been watching since day one, man, and you're still at it. Like, so it's overwhelming at times, and I'm very thankful for a lot of the homies and homegirls that have either bought donuts off me or repost. Donating right now for the 2-year anniversary.
Yep.
I'm planning outside of the shop right now, so it's like, yeah, I have a thing in the back of my kitchen that says like, one day at a time. You got this. Because like, I'm still here. I got to clean up. I got to process some orders. For Wednesday. I'm usually closed on Mondays. This is my like me day, but yeah, man, I'm always thankful for people within like the scene. So I know I've done something right, with how like things have been kind of transpiring with a lot of our favorite dancers and or like just people that are a part of the like overall scene. It's just like, okay, yeah.
Doing. That was kind of the reason why I asked the question because I've realized now that you've also hosted events for the community, for example, your 2-year anniversary jam. And that's happening in October
October
17th,
24th.
24.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
5v5, right?
originally. Yeah, it's supposed to be it was supposed to be in February because the first year I did it, well previous to the 1-year anniversary, I did a 2v2 outside the shop a week after the Olympics drama. So that was
Mm.
funny because even though the security guards that I'm cool with hit, they're like they were doing the whole ray gun bullshit. And I was like, nope, nope, you're not gonna see that. You're gonna see real dancing. And the thing is, Saturdays are kind of quiet because everyone wakes up late, but we had the music going and there was like a college like crawl happening, the farmers market. So it was like the perfect storm and people like stayed till like 5. And I taught a line dance. So yeah, I that comes from when I did the Rock End series. So I did a 1v1 rocking event partnering with a different style. So the first one was Rock and Lock. The second year was Rock and Pop. Third year, Rock and House. And the last one that I met you at was Rock and Break. And that was during the
Yeah.
pandemic. So that's probably
Yeah.
like I said, if and in prior to all that was the last Cell Space Jam that I organized, which was my first event, and people were like hitting me up for advice. I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I got lucky, but the Rock and Break one was where I could say, you know what, if I can organize an event during the pandemic, I can do anything. So yeah, and those events were special to me too because again, I was losing family as I was doing those. So like my grandma passed away a month after Rock and Lock. My mom passed a week after Rock and Pop. My aunt and my mentor, uh, the beginning of 2019 when I did Rockin' House, and then 2020, my best friend's dad succumbed to Alzheimer's a few weeks before I did Rock and Break. So um, and then I got my 2 year like stint at Freestyle Session. So I mean, I just know I have standards now when I like organize events, and that's something I also want to teach and spread because it's not easy putting on an event, and the scene can kind of be like stingy at times, but when the right people roll through, it's dope. So
Yeah. I love that you said it because it is not easy throwing an event, and the scene can be kind of stingy, and the scenes can also be like, supportive at times. So one thing that we do on this show, because it's called The Switch, the whole point is we want to know, when did you, Wacko, make the switch from this being just a hobby, something that you were doing in your apartment, to, you know what? I'm gonna make this a career. I'm gonna go all in and make Whack Donuts the way I live, like not like just live, but the way this is gonna support me.
when
When
I
did that happen?
finally moved, when I finally moved into a commissary kitchen, because the thing was, it was kind of starting to blow up out of my apartment. And that was kind of like my middle finger to the landlord because, like, she low key knew I was doing this thing out of my apartment, but because of how everything was going down, I didn't care. But at the same time, the demand was starting to increase. Um, so I was like, okay, I got to get into a commissary kitchen because I need more space for production because I think the most I ever made out of the apartment was like 600 donuts with only two mixing stands. And
God
this is when I
damn.
would go back and forth between like one that was dedicated for gluten free and one that was just, my regular. And so
Mhm.
at one point it was just like I couldn't be everywhere, and so I was looking for commissary kitchens that I could afford, and thankfully it was within my budget, and I was like, okay, this is real now, and like I registered the business, and it was just all these things were happening like somewhat subconsciously, consciously, where I was like, okay, I registered my trademark. I think that's when it was official when I registered the trademark. I was like, oh, I'm not playing around. And then people would see me like, I would like kind of have to bow out of like going to events and stuff or like lower my social life a little bit because I was that locked in. And I had people like, you sure you want to do this? I'm like, I'm doing it. What are you talking about? Or it's like, I'm out. It's like the only things that were on my mind was, finessing my recipes, making sure I was physically good and mentally. I was just like, I had to put on my blinders. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of homies that, and then weirdly they would ask me for advice, and I knew they only went so far, and they're like, "Oh man, I got to do this, I got to do that." I'm like, "Yeah, you got to do this," and just yeah. But like once I registered the trademark for Whack Donuts, I was like, "Oh shit, yeah."
Real.
That's right. Man, I feel like we could be here forever, but for those that don't know you, this is probably a great place to start. You've covered all of our bases and then some. And I appreciate you for that, man. Thank you so much, Wacko.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
you say a
Before we
great place
go,
to start?
wait, what?
You said this would be a great place to start.
Yeah, to learn a little bit about Wacko.
Oh, like this episode would be a
Yeah,
good
like
place
this
to start.
episode would be a great place to
Oh, I'm like,
start.
I'm like, start. Haven't we like been starting? What are you talking about? All right. Anyway,
That was just the prequel. Now we're really gonna get into it. No, Wacko, thank you so much, man. We always give the guests here the opportunity to tell their story, and to varying degrees of success, people like to share a little bit or a lot. but I appreciate the amount that you shared today because I learned a lot. And whether or not people learn a lot or not, I don't really care. I'm just glad that I got to be able to know you a little bit better and understand your story. And I will be in San Francisco for your jam, 2 year
Thank you.
anniversary on October 24th, and I will be getting some donuts. So I'll be giving a live Break Connect review. No, I'm kidding.
No,
We'll do podcast
no
part
pressure,
two
no
with the
pressure.
donuts. But no, thank you so much, Wacko. Thank you for
Yeah,
everything. Is there anything that you would like to
Whacko.
plug?
I mean, I'm open, Tuesday through Saturday, 5 days a week. I am working on hopefully popping up in San Diego before summer's out, so stay tuned for that. Um, Most likely late July, maybe August.
Okay.
I'll say this too, man. There's a lot of like talent in the dance scene where dancers are more than just dancers. We got people that can cut hair, graphic designers, starting platforms like this. I would tell anyone that's watching this is like just pull the trigger because I'm 6 years in and I literally did this MC Hammer style out of my apartment when I was juggling a lot, and I have to thank my homies too because there were multiple times I was considering quitting because like I said, all that grief, fighting eviction, getting into this spot, it hasn't been like perfect, which is an illusion anyways, but it's corny, but not really. Just keep at it. It's supposed to be hard.
Yeah,
So I'm already like trying to figure out like what's the next thing. Like I want to get a bigger space. I want to. I don't want to franchise quite yet, but yeah, I want to get a bigger space. It's donuts now, but I definitely want to start my 50C13 and like teach on top of dance, but the next generation, like you got an idea, let's get this thing going. Let's get your business started, So
yeah.
I think we Red Bull's not coming to save us, or whoever, is not coming. So we have to start it. And
Nobody's coming to save us. Yeah,
you
no,
know,
this is
so
facts, man.
yeah, if you got an idea, you know, push it, don't be like, ended up in like your 50s and 60s, like, oh, I should have done this. Nah. And it's corny to say that, but it's true. And I'm literally seeing it around me. So, like I said, it's donuts now, but stay tuned. Like Whack Donuts is gonna ascend to something even bigger. So that's where my head's at.
Appreciate you,
Boom.
man.
Mic
Well,
drop.
listen,
Bottom line right there.
because you said MC Hammer, I just want to say you are too legit to quit, my friend. Um, Wacko, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of The Switch. I'm Felix,
I'm no pride.
and
The
our
Whacker.
gracious guest, Wacko. We'll catch y'all next time.
Yes.
Yep.
Peace,
Peace.
peace,
Peace, y'all.
peace. Thank you, brother.